We are live.
We are live. Hey, it's Joyelle Nicole Johnson coming to us from Georgia, right?
Atlanta, Georgia. Yes. Yes. And they just started some shit outside. Can you hear it?
No, what's going on?
Fantastic. Okay, great. Because they're doing like, I don't know, some type of yard work.
Okay. Yard. That's pretty standard. That's fine. Very cool. You made the move recently from New York to Atlanta. We're going to get into that. We're going to talk about your stand-up comedy. We're going to talk about your activism, and we're going to get into it all. I'm going to play a little intro music to the new Unblocked Live podcast every Monday and Wednesday, 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern. This is Jeremy Lee Quinn, and my guest today is Joyelle Nicole Johnson, a friend of mine from the old New York City comedy days. We're going to get into it. Welcome to Unblocked Live. Hey, Joyelle.
Hey, Jeremy.
Yes. My real name, my given name. Now,
Black people say government. That's your government name. That's on the birth certificate. That's how the FBI knows you.
That's how it works. Yeah, Kenji was my ethnic name. That was my full-on comedy period where I was getting into it, and I went full Japanese game show host. So
I love that. I want people to be more ethnic. Like, I'm tired of people whitewashing their culture. I want whole Japanese, Chinese, Indian names in these streets, and I want to force white people to pronounce them.
Yeah, and points for trying if you pronounce them incorrectly. Are there points for at least
no, you don't
close?
get points for that, because it's funny, because like my name is so simple. It's 2 syllables, Joyelle, but since people have never seen it before, they just like gloss over and they'll just be like, Julia. And I'm like, Julia? So you're just not even trying. So I just want people to try more, you know. It's these names are just names you haven't heard before. So God forbid you think outside of your culture.
Right. So you try, but if your syllables are not if you're not able to piece them together in any semblance of the name and you completely butcher it and you're trying, then is that okay?
It's only okay if I'm hosting a show and I blank out right before I bring you up on stage and I'm like, oh, snap, what was this complicated name that I hope I pronounced right? That's the only way. Give me a pass. No one else. I'm kidding.
Oh, well, we're talking about two different things, because I'm talking about just if you're reading names off the page, it's casual. But if we get into bringing a comic up on stage, you better be up on that if you're hosting the show. So have people...
Here's the thing. If you've never met me before and you're hosting, I understand it. If you have like a good 10 people that you're bringing on stage, I understand a quick slip up. But if we're sitting in regular conversation and you're just like, I'm just going to call you Joelle. And I'm like, no, you're not. You're going to call me Joyelle.
You're going to work a little harder. Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Gotcha. And as far as, tell us a little bit about, you're in Atlanta now, fresh to the scene, but it's a digital scene as it is most anywhere, except there are people who are touring right now. I see every now and then. There are parts of the country that are open for stand-up. Is that my understanding?
Atlanta is popping. Atlanta has never closed. I think Atlanta closed for like 2 weeks last summer, and everything has since been open. There's comedians touring. There's people going all over the place. I have seen that on Instagram. I have.
Indoor shows as well, or just
indoor, outdoor, underground, above ground, and roofs and basements. That comedy will find a way, like life. That Jeff Goldblum quote from Jurassic Park. Comedy will find a way. Don't matter about a pandemic or nothing.
Now I've been across, journalism will find a way. I'll tell you that. I've been across the country for the last 8.5 months, popping back and forth. First time I was getting on planes, I'm going to admit I was a little nervous, but I wasn't really that nervous about airplanes. And outdoor, I saw you in Atlanta when I was covering the protests there. We ate outdoors, and outdoor dining is safe. There's low risk of transmission, and I've always been an advocate for outdoor activities. Now, I do not go into indoor bars because that just seems to me like a bad idea. I did it once. I was in Tulsa, actually. And this was the time where the former president was speaking, and I was there covering. Well, this was my entree into getting to know Trump supporters. Who my last podcast, I talked to somebody who voted for Trump. So I'm a little more
voted for Trump the second time.
Yeah, it was in So we'll get into that because I'd like to get your take on my as someone from the left. I think I only knew 2 Trump supporters a year ago, and now it's expanded just because I've traveled across the country. I've seen this as distressing times, and I've made an effort to reach out and understand other perspectives. But
if only they did also.
Well, hey, we're in gridlock. I'll admit that. When it comes to social media, I think we've all been pushed to. This is called the Anti-Polarization Podcast, by the way. That's my branding. Okay. The Anti-Polarization Podcast, because I want to have everybody talking and not at each other's throats necessarily, but trying to figure out what we agree on. And that's the big. That's the big challenge, I would say. Now, tell me about your touring. Here I am going off on my touring, but I want to know about pre-COVID, where you'd been around. You'd been on with Dave Chappelle at points in your career. Tell us about traveling and what it's like as a comic, and what are you thinking as far as when everything opens up again? What's the new America gonna look like?
Ooh, okay.
Let's go.
8-part, 30-minute answer question. Before COVID, I mean, a lot of people talk about what they did before the country shut down and how they wish they had done this, they wish they had done that. I did it all. I lived balls to the wall. Like, I traveled my behind off. I did tours in Europe. I did a military tour. I was in Greenland when it was 24 hours of light a day. So around this time last year, I was in between cruises. I did the Impractical Jokers cruise in February and the Joko cruise in March, up until literally the day the world shut down.
Wait, so were you on a cruise immediately prior or during the first news of COVID coming out?
March 7th. To March 14th, I was on a cruise ship.
Wow.
Yes, and everybody's like, "What? Are you kidding me?" It was absolutely ridiculous. The last time I performed was on that cruise ship, March 8th. Mike Kaplan and I split half-hour sets on the Joko cruise, and I did not know that was going to be my last time performing live for over a year, and it was a great way to go out, man. All those Joko nerds, shout out to the Joko cruise boat nerds. They're a great audience, and I did 2 half-hour sets. It was my last time, March 8th, this time last year. So yeah, I traveled. I was traveling. I had tours. I was on tour with Alana Glazer. We were doing a politically based tour. So that got cut short. I was opening for like Greg Proops and all these people. So all that got cut off, but I am so happy for everything that I did prior to the world shutting down. And the future, I think Zoom is the present. Hopefully not too much for the future, but for awkward shows, it's great. Zoom corporate gigs are fantastic. Corporate gigs are going to be awkward regardless. So we might as well not have to leave our house.
Now, can you talk about race at a corporate gig, or do you have to sort of stay away at this point? Is that kind of the third rail? What is that like doing a corporate gig now?
I always talk about race. I always talk about race. I am that person. So when they tell me to be clean, I'm like, I'll be clean. I will bring up slavery, but I won't curse. So yeah, I be talking about white people. I talk about white people all the time. And that one of that corporate gigs, I didn't get booked again. Maybe that's why. But everybody was laughing and they had a great old time. So, people's sensitivities are going to be what they are, but that's my perspective.
Yeah, I'm sure you had HR in a huddle in the back saying, "What are we doing? What's going on?"
It was for an HR company, ironically enough.
So it was people were getting on-site practical, just in their face training of what to do in a situation where it all comes up in the form of comedy, in the form of now do. So you're talking about it still. My question has been, this has been such a tense year from 2020, and the circles that I've been in, as far tense was the word I used, it have not been, everybody's been shut down and careful, but our comedians, I haven't been watching as many shows. Is it business as usual, or do you feel people are modifying their content?
I think comedians are always going to be business as usual. I mean, there's the people that would like to push the envelope, those shock comics who want to talk about things that, are going to offend people and things like that. I don't talk about white people to offend white people. I just talk about it from my perspective, my lens, being on an airplane with a white woman that wanted to tell me about the Black people she remembers. Like that type of thing is something that could have a funny perspective. However, that's just something I go through. And why would I have to go through that? So if people are always going to bring up race for me, why can't I bring that up? So I think, it's business as usual for most comics that are just going to talk about what we were going to talk about regardless, and just try not to talk about the pandemic too much because everyone's tired of hearing about it since we're in it.
Yeah, I'll say that's for sure. Yeah, I'm wondering if that might be a nice transition into a clip. Just show this is back at Broken Comedy, which was a show that Michael Che and Nimesh Patel did back in the day in Brooklyn. It was Williamsburg, Greenpoint, right by the
yes.
Yeah. What was that?
Rest in peace to that bar.
Oh, is it gone?
Yeah.
Bar Matchless, it was called.
Yeah, Matchless is
and it was on
no longer there.
Manhattan Avenue, right there. I remember you had to take the G train to get there.
Yes, that was our Monday night. It was Sunday night Knitting Factory, Monday night Matchless were like, and then Tuesday night Cabin. I think it was Cabin Thursday. Cabin was either Tuesday or Thursday, but that Sunday and Monday were like for the Black comics of my generation, Knitting Factory Sunday and Matchless Monday.
Yeah, Knitting Factory. That was the Hannibal's. Hannibal Buress would host that one.
Yes.
For folks who do not know the ins and outs of the greater Brooklyn comedy scene.
Yes. Of the late 10s.
Yes. Well, no, it would have been the early 10s, right?
Early 10s. Yes. That would have been the early 10s. Yeah, when Hannibal was still doing it.
Yeah, we're looking at a clip here. This is you from we won't tell them how many years ago.
It's got to be 2011, at least 2010,
something like that. Well, hey, you cannot tell. I'll tell you. I'll tell you that.
Terrible.
You can tell because I didn't have LASIK.
It doesn't matter what type of Zyrtec or Claritin.
You're into allergies here. I'll give them the.
I'm still sniffling and like right now it's not even bad. It's extra bad when I'm eating, which is why that's never a sexy first date. Just to be in front of a dude like, yeah, you got any brothers? What college did you say you go to? Like, bitch, are you on cocaine? What is wrong with you? I'm not on cocaine. Sometimes I wish I was, though, like in certain situations, because I feel like cocaine is a social drug. It helps me, especially when I'm spying on white people. Like, I wish I could be social. I wish I could do a lot of coke and then find out your secrets. That's what I want to know. Y'all been hiding some shit from us. Teach me about investing. That's on my bucket list. Fuck a goddamn marathon. I don't understand that shit. I want to learn what the NASDAQ. What's going on with that shit? Who is Dow Jones? He sounds like a cool ass Dow brother from the 70s. Dow Jones.
All right.
Woo, that wasn't painful. Yes.
Now, did you recall? You write so much material. You're someone who's always working. When you see a clip like that, is that like, oh, that's me, or I remember that kind of?
Yeah, I remember that bit, and it was like more kind of a throwaway because when you're doing, I did matches so much, and they had a lot of regulars that you kind of feel like, okay, I need to do new material, and I think that was one of the ones I thought of on the way to the bar, and I'm like, oh, that's a pretty good bit. I should bring that one back. Get that clip offline and bring that one back.
Hey, I'm seeing a full sketch series about Dow Jones.
Dow Jones.
It's like a blaxploitation
yeah.
film.
The down ass brother, Dow Jones.
Dow Jones, Yeah,
Dow
no,
Jones.
good stuff. That's so funny that you just kind of came up with, what is your process like as far as, are you someone who's always good, sort of taking notes, or do you sit down and take time away, or,
I am not a sit down disciplined writing comic. I wish I was, but I am more of the conversational. So one of the best pieces of advice I ever got was if you say something in conversation to make someone laugh, write it down. And anytime I'm talking, sadly, it's just me and my boyfriend. He's the only person I've seen for the past year. So it's mostly him now that I get to bounce my ideas off of. But that's where I go from my life situations. I consider myself a storyteller. And if I've called someone and been like, you ain't going to believe this, and I start going off and they're cracking up, I'm like, oh, okay, I could talk about this on stage. So now, luckily, I've been doing comedy long enough that I don't need that reaction anymore. Like I know what's funny now versus before I would have to, get feedback from other people off stage before I would be confident enough to bring it on stage.
Gotcha. Now, I want to talk a little bit about your activism as well, because I know that you have been a strong advocate for female reproductive rights and
abortion. Say it, abortion.
Well, now you said, I'm quoting you from a couple years ago, and now I know your rhetoric has changed in just the last 2 years. Because I'm looking at see, I do my homework, Joyelle.
Yes.
I prepare for I don't just get the clips and stuff, but I was looking at clips from 2 years ago, and you were saying female reproductive rights, and now there's a video from the summer of you just
hammering abortion.
Yeah. Can you tell me a little bit about the change of rhetoric?
I think mostly is the word abortion. It's such a taboo word, and women who have had abortions feel ashamed about it. So I work with a group called the Abortion Access Front. I work with a group called Shout Your Abortion. And the premise behind it is to take the stigma off the word for women to not feel ashamed about themselves for having one. It's like, hush, hush, you had an abortion. Let's whisper the word. Let's say, other things versus saying abortion. So I want to say the word. I want to scream the word. And I want women to not feel ashamed of having had an abortion or going to have an abortion or considering it, whatever. So that's what's changed. Me being grown and me being a little bolder and more confident in myself and understanding that this is for the younger women, or not even the younger women. I had an older cousin who came to one of my abortion shows and she left in tears. And I thought she left because she was religious and didn't want to deal with the topic. But she told me she left because she couldn't deal with having had an abortion earlier in her life and had never dealt with it. So that's why I do it, for like my crying cousin who left a show because she had never dealt with her abortion.
And was this something that it could be seen in other activist groups, or is it something that you have spearheaded? Is there parallel thinking? I'm just trying to get an idea of how the change of rhetoric came about. Is this like, in other words, is this you, or are other groups sort of?
So I'm trying to think of what video, because in the video, was I saying women's reproductive rights instead of saying abortion? Was I trying to say don't say abortion?
No, that's just the terminology that you used. And
yeah,
so,
I'll still say women's reproductive rights. I'll still say that, but I'm more focused on just being more vocal about the word abortion. So I don't know that my rhetoric has changed. I think it just enhanced of me. I'll say women's reproductive rights, but I also want to scream the word abortion in people's faces. I want to wear abortion t-shirts and get looks from people. So that's the best way to tell someone's politics, is wear the word abortion across your titties and look at people's faces when they see the word. You'll either get like a yes or a and that's why I do it.
And is it more than just have people actually engaged in a very upset or negative way when it comes to if you use the word, or I guess as you said, like just putting it out there without hesitation?
I mean, I'm almost 6 feet tall. I'm big and black and loud. So there are very few people that are just going to walk up to me willy-nilly on the street, like, let me talk about your abortion shirt. That don't happen. But when I would do escorting with the Abortion Access Front, escorting women into clinics, I would get into it with the protesters and the antis outside of the clinics and talk to them about it, because, I do want to know what their logic is, because there never is any logic there. So I love to talk to those kinds of people, because I can just talk them into like a circular realization that you're not really based on anything right now. This argument makes no sense.
No, I've always been on the choice side of the argument, but if spending all this time traveling, if I were to hear that argument, this seems to be historically one of the more divisive issues to try to talk about. First of all, have you encountered threats or militancy on the other side? And what's that like?
Yes. When we would go on tours with the Abortion Access Front, we specifically did 2 tours back to back, the summer of 2017 and summer of 2018. I believe those were 2018, 2019, whatever those years were. And we went through the red states and we did shows in like the blue pocket of the red state. And we would get protesters that would come to the shows. We would get men. Yeah, it's mostly men. It's mostly men yelling. I've had people yelling at me, telling me I'm going to go to hell, threatening. There was one time that the guy was threatening our life. And I actually felt nervous, because he was just kind of like, today's your judgment day. Today God's going to judge you. And I was like, is he going to throw a bomb into the show? That was the one time I actually felt nervous. So yeah, we have encountered threats, and we used to have to tour with security, because people would threaten the organization and things like that, threaten the venue for holding the show. And for me, that's all the more reason to do it, because of the people that think we can be intimidated by, threats. For what? For women's bodily autonomy? Fuck out of here.
Now, when you say, what show are you talking? Is this Lady Parts Justice?
Yes, Lady Parts Justice is now called the Abortion Access Front. Yes.
They were a front. It's changed. So you guys changed your names.
Yeah.
Okay, because I remember Lady Parts Justice but tell us a little bit about what it is. It's a comedy tour, or
yes, it's a women's reproductive rights organization that advocates for taking the stigma off of the word abortion and making people aware of the TRAP laws, which are the targeted regulations against abortion providers that are going all throughout the local governments in the country. So making people understand that the presidential race isn't the only race that matters. These state and local races are the ones that matter more, because they are the ones that are taking women's rights away to have abortions. on that level. So and we use it with comedy. So we'll go around, do a comedy tour, but we'll also go to clinics, help out the clinic. You know, a lot of people don't know that certain clinics can't get services because of what they do. You know, abortion clinics, they can't get landscaping or painting done. So we'll come and paint a sidewalk or paint a wall, plant some bushes, things like that for the clinics to support them, and then have talkbacks after the show with the more serious people that are there in that area that can tell us more about what the clinics need and what's going on in the area with the politics. So marrying comedy and politics, which is my dream.
Yeah. And tell me a little bit about those talkbacks. What sort of comes up? Are you talking about talkbacks within different communities across the country? Mm-hmm. What are those like?
Yeah, they're great. Well, you know, there might be a local politician who comes to the talk back, or the head of the clinic, you know, local activists. So Liz Winstead is the founder of the Abortion Access Front. She's also one of the creators of The Daily Show. And she's the person that will moderate it and bring the people in. You know, if it's an abortion clinic owner, she will tell the community what they need. What do they need? Escorts? Do they need services? Do they need somebody who does websites? You know, things like that are that simple. And then if we bring a local politician, the politician will tell what bills are going to the state legislator that are going to prohibit women from having access to abortion care. You know, so that's what happens at the end. And so it's a lot of information that you get, and you get to laugh in the beginning, and then it leads into something a little more serious.
Gotcha. And speaking of serious, I mean, I talk about trying to find common ground and stuff. When you said when you debate with people that are from the other side,
yes.
What do you say when they, for example, say this is making it too present in the public conscious that this isn't my idea, so I'm trying to formulate
devil's advocate.
I'm trying to play devil's advocate and sort of say here's one thing. I think I told you when I saw you in Atlanta, in discussing with my family abortion, one point that I think it was my dad made was during the Clinton years, one sort of nuance was that you want abortion to be safe, but you also want it to be infrequent. Yes. And that if somebody from the other side says, well, this isn't stressing enough the message that abortion should be not frequent, how do you respond to that?
Then we need comprehensive sexual education. And there are studies that show in other countries, the more sex ed you have, the less abortions that you have. So if women have access to proper sexual education that's not religious based and BS, that's actually based in science and educating young children, if they have comprehensive sexual education and access to birth control, then you're going to have less abortions. The problem is all these religious nuts, evangelicals, they want to act like, no, don't have sex. That's the message. We can't have sex. So no sex, abstinence only education. That doesn't work. People are going to have sex. So if you try to tell kids abstinence only, that's when they're like, okay, this doesn't make sense. So now I'm going to have sex. Now I'm not going to be educated on birth control. And now I'm going to get pregnant at age 15. And now I'm going to have to try to have a secret abortion that my parents aren't privy to because I didn't get the proper education. So that's my answer. And that's the problem, is that they don't have any other answer to it. They just want to say no sex. That don't work.
Well, we were all teenagers, and
yeah.
Let me ask you this: how do you get young men more involved in understanding their responsibility and their role in? How do you engage with young men to take responsibility for their actions and a little bit more, and get them into the conversation? Because I would like to think, I mean, they're the ones who, you know, can't sit still and kind of should, I think, evolve on this as far as how they accept responsibility for their actions.
Here's the thing: we can't get pregnant alone. And that's the problem, is that all of these restrictions are on women. who cannot get pregnant without men. You know, so it's like, God forbid that, you know, there was like a anti-pregnancy drug for women. There was like a pill for men, and they took it off the shelves because it was like making men sad, you know, because it was messing with their hormones and things like that. So all of the onus is on the woman. And that's the problem. We need men to be more engaged in this discussion, because we have to have the talks. They have a crazy law. I want to say it's in either South Carolina or Tennessee, where they're trying to allow even your rapist to have a decision of whether or not you have an abortion. So they're saying even in the matters of rape and incest, you have to get the father of the child to sign off on your abortion, you know, and regardless of that, I need fathers to be more engaged. We need men to be more engaged. The only way that I can do that is when I'm going back and forth talking to these men in the streets. Like I had talked to one guy who was trying to lecture me about abortion. And then halfway through the conversation, I was like, wait a minute, are you a virgin? And he was like, yeah. I was like, holla at me in a couple of years after you get your dick wet. Like, come on, son. You've never even had an accident. You know what I'm saying? So how to get men more engaged? I'm not sure how, but you guys need to be. You guys need to be. And that's our goal. It's not a woman's problem. It's everyone's issue.
I feel like I had good education growing up, as far as not just high school, because it was going to high school in California. We took health classes and had sexual education when we were teenagers in high school, but also parents, you know, being involved in the conversation. And you know, my dad, he's a physician, so he sat me and my brother down when we were perhaps too young, because we were like, oh God,
yeah, gross, Dad.
Why are you telling me this?
Yeah,
too soon.
Yeah. My mother was a nurse, so same.
Right.
Total same.
Right. As I went to go play with my G.I. Joe figures, and you know, I was not really ready and so forth. But you get that from people who are in medical communities, and that's great. And I think that was an advantage, and I think that's kept me, I guess, without children this long. But that's
right. Me too. Me too. My mother used to have a big old board that showed the STDs. It was like a cartoon rendering of STDs. This huge board. It was like a fold out that you bring, you know, to conferences and stuff when she would speak. And that was just sitting in our dining room for the longest time. And so I'm like eating and staring at gonorrhea. Like, and you wonder why I'm almost 40 and you don't have any grandkids. Man.
Yeah, no, we got the book that we got was the classic, Where Did I Come From? And it was this, it's kind of a comic book, and this little, it's a book for young people. And me and my brother were read that. And then we got the anticipated sequel, What's Happening to Me?
I didn't get those.
So we knew everything like before, you know, the 5th grade. And it was, if anybody had questions, we were the ones to go to, because although we were given the caveat, we're telling you this, but it's up to other kids' parents to have the talk with them. And so, you know, getting that is part of our social conversation, part of popular culture of have the talk with your kids about what happens and how much of a responsibility you're signing yourself up for if you can't be responsible. You know?
Yeah. And I think we need to revamp education just across the board. Like, why isn't there a class on taxes? Why isn't there a class on, you know,
financial literacy,
buying a house? Yeah. Why?
Exactly.
You know, so all of that stuff is like we learn in sine, cosine, and tangent, but you need to learn about the IRS. That's what we need to learn about, because that's what's affecting my life now. I don't even remember sine, cosine, and tangent, but that was a whole entire year geometry that was, I mean, veritably a waste if you're not going to be a damn architect. Like, what are we doing here? So yeah, I think education across the board needs to be revamped, and it shouldn't be solely up to a parent to educate their child on sexual education.
I agree.
We can't hope everybody's parents are nurses and doctors.
Yeah, true. And financial literacy, you mentioned, buying a house, understanding how credit works. All these kids are coming in, and you get to a junior college or university, and the credit card companies, because you're investing in your future, they're like, oh, we'll give you a credit card. And if you don't have that education beforehand in high school of understanding how the credit card companies are predatory, how your credit score works, what your interest rates are going to be, and what's going to happen if you go over a certain limit and you just realize, oh my gosh, my payments now are I'm constantly behind, because I think we need to teach that in high school.
Completely. Shoot, middle school. Let's start. We're gonna have the little baby one, and then geometry 1 and 2, algebra 1 and 2, financial literacy 1, 2, 3, and 4. Like every year, there should be more financial literacy.
Yeah, why not? Then people will understand, how to not, fall into these predatory traps.
Because even if we had the baby, because I had the fake baby. Did you have the fake baby in high school that you carried around for like half a semester?
See, that's how into abstinence I was, or I guess not putting I didn't even get the fake baby. So.
Yeah, we had the fake baby in my high school. I grew up in New Jersey, and we had to carry that baby around, but it didn't go too in depth. Like, they didn't talk about the financial burden of having a baby and even how much diapers cost. Like, the big thing was like, ugh, I got to carry this thing around. That was enough for me to be like, I don't want to have to carry this mug around everywhere. But that could be a day in class. Let's break down how much is it going to cost for you to have this baby, over the long haul for 18 years. How much money you spend? Look, add that money up. How much you spent on this baby for 18 years versus, you could have gone to Europe how many times?
Right. And do you want that at the age of 17 or 18? I mean,
goodness.
You have these rash of reality shows that almost glamorize, like on MTV back in the day. But I want to say, I don't even know if that still goes on, where they would basically just do reality shows on pregnant teens. And and at that point, you're almost like, well, hey, are you incentivizing this as a
right? Have a baby, you can be on MTV.
Yeah, have a baby, get on MTV. Exactly. I wonder if when it comes to what more we can do, especially in education. The other one that I keep talking about is non-opinion journalism. We have so much misinformation. We're being hit by so many sides with misinformation, to everything that generates, Stop the Steal or QAnon, and then it's on in different manifestations, even to like Star Wars fans people are exploiting opinions that come from Twitter, and they are not only weaponized, but they start trending. And misinformation makes its way into publications very easy, because these web companies just want to get on a trending wave. And they're working so fast to try to make a little bit of ad revenue that we're being hit with a misinformation epidemic. What information in your activism do you feel people have gotten wrong, and would you like people to understand better, that you see misrepresented either on Twitter or on the web, when it comes to either reproductive rights, race, policing, anything that you're
where do you start? But I think there's this whole myth of a Black genocide. I don't know if you've heard this before, but there's a lot of what we call hoteps in the African American community that believe that abortions have been targeted in the Black communities so that we could have a Black genocide. And basically not have, a future of African Americans. And that's just complete BS to me, mostly because it takes the bodily autonomy and the decisions away from the women. And that's the problem. They're acting like people are forcing us to have abortions. Yes, there was forced sterilization in our communities. There were gynecologists that were experimenting on women's bodies. That's a completely different thing. A woman making the decision to have an abortion is my choice. I am of clear mind, sound body decisions. I can make these decisions. So I want people to stop taking the decision away from the woman. That's what they do with waiting periods. There's waiting periods. That's another trap law. They'll say between 24 hours and 72 hours, depending on the state, you have to talk to the doctor and then go home and think about it. As if I didn't think about it when I made the appointment, as if I didn't know already that I wanted to have this. They keep acting like women are just these gentle creatures that can't make our own decisions. So the Black genocide, that's one of my rage moments,
And where do you see that? Is that a Twitter thing? Does that stuff sort of?
Yeah, people like Nick Cannon and Kanye West, like all of those, Black men that are in the spotlight that can just say whatever the hell they want without any type of educated thinking or statistics to back it up, So, those are two people that come to mind that believe in the Black genocide and women and abortion being some type of like attack against the Black community. No, all women across the board, every race has abortions, not just Black. So.
Curious about the waiting period. How much, this is not an issue that I've particularly studied, but I'm curious from your perspective, what is that? How widespread is that? And are you speaking just on terms of principle? Are there any possible advantages for young people to have a waiting period?
No, there is no advantage, because actually what it does is it prohibits, because, all right, take a state like Mississippi, for example. Mississippi has one abortion clinic in the whole entire state. Oh, wow. It's called the Pink House. That's the only one left. It's in Jackson, Mississippi. So whatever their waiting period is, say it's 72 hours. So if a woman travels from the north tip of the state or the bottom of the state to get to Jackson, okay, we're talking about gas money. We're talking about taking time off work. We're talking about somebody babysitting your kids that you already have. A lot of people don't talk about that. A good portion of women that have abortions already have kids. They don't want to have more kids because they don't want to stay in poverty. So what a waiting period does is it gives more of a burden to the woman. It's just more of a roadblock. So if I have a 72-hour waiting period, what do I got to go back home? However many hours away I live, and then I got to come back 72 hours later. I got to get another appointment. The Pink House is the only clinic, so their appointments might be backed up for weeks. And so then another thing that they do is they want to try to have like a heartbeat bill, which are 6-week or to 20-week abortion bans. And so once you go home and come back, get another appointment, you can't even have the abortion anymore. So now you have to have the baby.
I see. Well,
yeah. So no, there's no advantage in that, because women, we're thinking, they think that women are just like, let me just have an abortion. No, you already knew you didn't want to have a baby. You already knew you didn't want to have the baby. So by the time I've made the appointment and gotten to the clinic, I know what I'm doing. I don't have to think about it anymore.
I see. I mean, as someone who's from California and you're from the East Coast,
yeah,
right.
I'm a coastal elite.
We're both coastals. So I'm sure that it seems very culturally foreign. In other words, to go into parts of the country. I mean, you mentioned what was that? What state had only one? Mississippi. Mm-hmm. Are there other states like that, such as Alabama?
Yes, Louisiana. I think has less than 4. Last I saw it was 4. It might be less. It's probably less now, especially after the pandemic. A lot of the clinics had to shut down. Texas, they closed a lot of their clinics, and that case actually went to the Supreme Court. And by the time the Supreme Court ruled against it, maybe like 10 or 12 clinics had shut down. What people don't realize about Planned Parenthood is what they do, only 3% of their services are abortion services. So the predominant place that women get abortion are specifically at abortion clinics. And those are the ones that are getting shut down left and right in this country. So a woman who lives at the tip of Texas got to travel 3-4 hours, 5-6 hours sometimes to get an abortion. And think about that. If you're a teenager, you're 15, 16, how are you getting there? Is there a train? Is there a bus? Is it like, how are you getting there? So that's what it is. It's just limiting access. So if I can't afford to get somewhere, you want me to have a baby? That just it does not make any sense that people just want to force women to have babies because they had an accident during sex. That doesn't make any sense.
What do you think can be done with states that obviously are catering to a religious majority in their voting constituents? What obviously progress doesn't happen instantly. Right. As far as how do you strategize, at least engaging, having the conversation, because the last thing anybody wants is people having unsafe abortions and going to other means that historically we have known have been problematic and dangerous. Mm-hmm. So how do you, when it comes to states like this, and I'm sure you have dialogue with other organizations that are based geographically in those locations. Mm-hmm. What's the way to at least make a little bit of progress rather than people screaming at each other?
That's a heavy question that I don't think I have the ability to answer. I mean, my only answer to that would be vote like your life depends on it, because it does, and donate to abortion funds, because the thing that abortion funds do is that it gives women the financial ability to get to these places and to, have access to the care. So if you live in a state that's super duper red, or an abortion desert, which up in the Northwest, there's whole abortion desert states where there's no access, and women would have to fly somewhere, to have an abortion. So I stay on top of your local governments, stay on top of them. I moved down to Georgia. We flipped Georgia blue on the federal level, but the state and the state legislature is red as hell down here. And the things that they're focused on right now are making it harder to vote. They're about to gerrymander the hell out of these districts down here in Georgia.
Wow, interesting. What's the voter registration legislation that has been coming up? In other words,
I forget. I forget what the bill is called. I specifically forget what it's called that they're putting in the state legislature right now. But I know that there's a bunch of red states doing that right now. They're specifically making it harder to vote. They are
voter ID
purging. Voter ID. They're making voter ID. They are purging people off of the
rolls.
The rolls. They are focusing on absentee ballots, making them harder to get, making it harder to fix. The whole thing with the signature, and if your signature didn't match, they could send it back to you and you can fix it. They're trying to limit that. So because that was the huge thing in the past election because of the pandemic, that the absentee and the vote by mail ballots. So they're trying to limit all that stuff. And one of the things that happened here in Georgia was, if it's postmarked day of election, they were able to count. And that's why we didn't know who won until Saturday. Right. Versus Tuesday, because some of the ballots were still coming in on Tuesday, and we were able to count them. And Stacey Abrams made sure that they counted every single one of those ballots, and that's why we didn't know Georgia until that Saturday. Right.
Now, this thing with the voter ID stuff and mm-hmm. making it harder. As I told you, I've been listening to the other side and I've been studying it, because we have this thing that happens where if somebody posts anything about voting and election integrity would be the, I guess, the more moderate way to frame it and say, hey, we need integrity. Moderate Republicans might phrase it that way. But if anybody posts with Gina Carano, the actress from the Star Wars Mandalorian, who they went after, one of her posts was about election integrity. It wasn't, I read it, and it wasn't very radical and militant. It just said we need integrity and this kind of, it sort of, now there are 35 cases of voter fraud being what's the word that I'm looking for? Prosecuted prosecuted in Georgia. So now I don't know that that's a lot. I would have to look at each one, see if any of them sort of, but there are the point that the right makes is there are instances. Now, granted, the media and certainly misinformation coming from the right and web tabloids from the right propelled that into an absurd level of hyperbole. Mm-hmm. But so the question has always been, and I almost said, you have to let people at least investigate enough to where it doesn't look like you're being so protectionist that you're suppressing the smallest investigations. But then it's like, well, then you get all these absurd lawsuits being filed. And we need to really come back as a country to finding our way to allow each other, in my opinion, to be heard, but at the same time being very empirical about the way we look at the data and we validate and invalidate certain claims. That's just my soapbox moment when it comes to trying to figure out this whole election mess and how we're going to move forward without the same kind of misinformation loopholes being exploited.
Well, I do know that white Republicans regret giving Black people the right to vote. And to that, I say, aha, bitch, in your face. That's what you get for bringing us here. We're going to vote.
Wow. You're
bullshit.
You're going back. You're going, you take it.
Oh, I will go back because it's so ridiculous to me that they are literally, when they tried to not validate the election, you are saying that you regret giving Black people the right to vote and choke and die on that regret. And it's happening down here in Georgia. They're mad that all these Black people in Atlanta, all the Black people in Detroit, all the Black people in Philly got our asses together and voted his ass out of office. And they mad about that. And they don't want to let it be legal.
Well, hold on. I mean, I understand the inference, but has anybody come out and said that? Or is this just something that it's anecdotally, you feel it?
What cities were they saying were ineligible? They were saying Detroit.
Right.
They were saying Philly. They're saying Atlanta. These are the states and the areas that they were saying that are predominantly Black that we need to throw out those votes. You know, Trump wasn't saying that when he won Michigan in 2016, but now in 2020, we got issues. No. That's literally what they're saying. And if you want to call it a dog whistle, call it what you want. It's not a dog whistle to me because I'm Black. I hear it loud and clear. This is literally what you're saying. I hear it absolutely loud and clear. They regret it. And hey, regret it. They mad.
What's funny is that now you and I did a short. I'm going to play that because I know you got to go pretty soon. We did a short years and years ago, and it got a lot of engagement. It went viral. It went on The View. Whoopi Goldberg introduced it. The Huffington Post wrote it up. The Huffington Post now, who I can't sort of find cultural common ground with because a lot of my research over the last 8 months has been about, hey, I think we need to look at our excesses on the left just as much as the right needs to look at theirs. That's not a message that some people want to hear, and I get that. But regardless, this short that we did was an interesting starting point because at this point, there were legitimate white supremacist, neo-Nazi, anti-Semitic type YouTube accounts. And this is where the white supremacy, in my view, comes out is it's really these troll accounts. And these guys came out big. I guess this was like 7 or 8 years ago when we made this video, and it's based on a Cheerios commercial that originally was attacked because it featured a biracial couple. And then we did this send up of it. I will give people a look. This is the Cheerios parody. I'm behind the camera and editing and wrote this one. So.
Yes, honey? Is it true that eating a healthy breakfast cereal like we do every morning is normal? And in the year 2013, the way our family looks shouldn't be such a big deal?
Well, it says here that Cheerios is heart healthy. And I say that we have the God-given right to stuff our faces with whatever we want and with whomever we want, no matter what the haters say.
What? Now this is a problem? Jeez! Disable the YouTube comments!
There we go. Denise.
Still great.
Still good. It still resonates.
Sadly.
Well, I will say this. That was 2013. I didn't realize I had written it into the script. But I feel like here's an interesting perspective. Has the other side, you'll always have your trolls, your internet bigots that sort of come out of the woodwork. Are we further along than we were 7 years ago when it comes to giving people, I guess, that wave of resistance that was such a big deal to make that video then? Has society changed? Are people more accepting than they were in 2013?
We elected Trump. What? We almost elected him again. If it wasn't for the pandemic, he would be the president again. No, we're not. I honestly am happier in a sense that these white people have shown themselves, that these white supremacists, nationalists, Nazis, whatever you want to call them, QAnon, whatever these people are, I'm happy that they have shown their asses, as Black people would say, because we've always known this. Now white people are like, wow, this is a problem. Yeah. Black people, we've known this. We've known this has been a problem. So has it gotten better? No, I don't even know if it's gotten worse, but it hasn't gotten better. We've just seen it more, and he's incensed these people, which is, absolutely appalling, but put that hat on.
But have they been incensed on racial lines? That's the big question that I'm still, I was in Washington, D.C. I shot my video. I shot the bullhorn lady who was in the Capitol. And I got the only live stream off there. I've been following protest and unrest on the right and the left. So I've been in Black Bloc with Antifa. I've done the whole thing. What I'm not convinced of is that people understand how things have changed since Charlottesville. And here's why. Because Charlottesville, I think, is embedded in our head. All those people with their shields going up against the Antifa and throwing things, people being actual white supremacists and white nationalists at Charlottesville. Now, there is a story which I've talked about other folks. There's a couple of us, a handful of us, and I'm going to have a bunch of these guys on next Monday who have been independent videographers who have gone from city to city and taken a lot of video of everything that's been going down. What we're sort of in agreement about is that things changed after Charlottesville. The right actually expelled, and a lot of those groups that were responsible for Charlottesville, they were hurt financially. People got sued. Somebody died because of basically a hate crime that was committed at Charlottesville. And that alt-right thing was kind of decimated. But what you have, you could call it a rebranding. That's one argument you can make. But there is a iteration of, Trump increased his votership among minorities between 2016 and 2020. More minorities.
He increased his votership with everyone.
Yeah.
He got more votes.
Well, I'm talking about percentage. So he got more votes, yes, but I'm saying he increased his percentage. More, black men voted for him than did 4 years ago. And I've been to these things, and I've seen that this is what surprised me back in Tulsa on June the 20th, and was that I looked for white supremacist symbols. I talked to people. I saw more diversity. I told you the one story about how I was in Tulsa and I saw this young kid in a polo shirt, white kid, and he was arguing with a black guy with a camera who had dreads. And the black guy with the dreads was arguing for MAGA, and the white kid with the polo shirt was arguing for BLM. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't a complete anomaly. I have seen minorities comfortable in that scene in a way that if you haven't been there, you'd think I was making it up, because they don't actually talk about race. This is a point that I told you I talked to a Trump voter on the last episode, and he said, we don't sit around talking about race. And he was interesting because he went to Andrew Yang, and then he went, because Andrew Yang didn't get it, he was like, well, I'm going for Trump over Biden. So people have much more complex reasons for making their decisions that well, you don't, but
I think it's because a woman was on the ticket. So I think when you can't use racism as your cue, you're going to use sexism. And that's why Hillary lost. And that's why more black men voted for Trump this time, because they didn't want to vote for Kamala Harris.
All right. Well, I mean, that's all interpretive. That's all
sure. Everything's we're all extrapolating data.
Well, no, but I mean, we would have to look and say, well, do the numbers, sort of support that, and polls? And,
you said more black men voted for Trump this time. That is why.
More black men voted for Trump this time than 4 years ago. But
that is why.
But no, I don't think everything can be reduced to a single identitarian issue.
This country is pretty simple, and people are very simple. People are quite dumb and simple. So I take an a completely opposite perspective, which is that people and their subcultures and their identities and everything are much more complex and varied than we give them credit for. So maybe that's going to be a debate for another time. Because I can't do it, because for me, I know that people are always going to take whatever their supremacy is. And that's why white women take being white and black men take being men. And that's why black women are always in this kind of a limbo of always getting it from both sides. We get the white supremacy, we get the male supremacy. And I feel like that's why we can understand and have more empathy in these types of situations. And I do know for a fact, research Hoteps, Jeremy. Research Hoteps. They wasn't voting for Kamala.
Explain that to the audience in case they don't know what you're saying.
I would say a Hotep is a contrarian. Just basically someone that has something the opposite to say to whatever the popular opinion is. And there are a lot of black men. It's one of those things that I understand, but I can't explain. Yeah, I would just say people look it up. I can't explain it. I know what a Hotep is. I can't explain it. I'm not that eloquent right now.
You're leaving us in the hands of Google with that one. Are you sure?
I mean,
the internet has to tell us.
Once again, people aren't smart.
All right. Well, we're going to have to pick that one up and debate that full on, because I am I think you and I would have an interesting debate if we explore that a little further. But
I know. I thought we was gonna talk about comedy this whole time. You like, bitch, come with facts. How can we fix voters? How can we fix?
we forgot to talk about comedy.
Woo, man.
We forgot. Well, you can say something about comedy real quick before you go.
I know. I'm a comedian, y'all. I'm an activist, but I'm also a comedian. And I do not have the answers to everything. And I'm not eloquent about a lot of things. And there are a lot of people that would be, able to, come with you with the facts and the explanations better than I can. But I do know that sexism and racism are extremely prevalent in America and the world.
All right. Okay.
That's it.
That's
it.
I feel like is that a mic?
Yes. This is the mic I use for my shows.
Very cool. Let's talk about when people can see you. Are you doing shows? When can people catch you? You're online.
I am strictly online right now, and I am doing shows sporadically via Zoom. So I will announce them usually in my Twitter or on Instagram stories. So Joyelle Nicole across the board.
That's your handle right there?
Yes.
That's where people can find
Joyelle
you?
Nicole. That's where people can find me. And if you want to find me doing a show, look it up. I'm in there. I'm not out in these streets. I'm on these internets.
Out on these internets, on these webs. So you're on Instagram, Twitter.
And just the regular JoyelleNicole.com.
All right, Joyelle Nicole.
Wait one second. Look. Yeah. The term hotep comes from the ancient Egyptian word for to be at peace and is sometimes used in contemporary Black culture as a greeting.
So how does that connect?
It doesn't.
Okay. I'm gonna Google it. I'm sure we're gonna talk again. And once this thing gets really super launched, because right now it's just kind of a soft launch.
We like soft.
Yeah. We're just checking things out. We're just talking. We're having conversations across the. I'm pointing to the logo up there. Across the red and the blue. That's what the logo.
It's over my head. So
it is. It's literally
over here for me.
Yeah. There. Got it.
Oh,
okay.
Man.
Joyelle, thanks for being on the show. I appreciate it. And
thanks for having me.
Yeah, we'll catch up. And next time, I promise we'll do more comedy. And and we'll get all we'll be able to see more of your stuff online as well.
And next time I will have more of an in-depth definition of what a hotep is, because I'm one of those people that can use words and I'll Google them and be like, that is what that word meant. Not in that instance, but you know what I'm saying.
Joyelle Nicole Johnson, thanks for being with us on Unblocked Live. I'll catch. I gotta find you here. Okay, I'll catch you next time.
Bye.
All right, folks. Thank you for joining us on Unblocked Live. I'm just going to give a little shout about what's coming next week. Next Monday, we're going to have a round table. If this happens, we're having a round table with BG on the scene. Brendan Gutenschwager, he's the guy who's been everywhere from Kenosha to, he was at the Capitol. He's a video journalist. Also Ford Fisher and Richie McGinnis in one roundtable discussion next Monday at 1:00 Pacific. Then I'm having comedian Matt Ruby on next Wednesday. We're going to be talking about tech. He's done the tech parody called Vuza. So check out Matt Ruby, a very funny comedian from New York City as well. And thank you for being on with us, Unblocked Live. I am Jeremy Lee Quinn signing off. We'll see you next week.